So, great morning, everybody. So grateful to be here with everybody today. For those of you that are new, this is our Breakthrough Mastermind group. We are not here to pitch our business. The mission for Breakthrough Mastermind Group is to empower business owners through the leverage of knowledge to enhance ourselves and our companies professionally. So, again, we're not here to pitch our business. This is really to bring genuine information to help other business owners, bring some perspective. And then on an underlying theme, this is a little bit of a networking group. So guys, please send some messages in the chat, get to know one another. Everybody here is pretty much in a completely different vertical or industry. So that makes it really, really beneficial because everybody can support one another differently. We don't really have any overlap. Typically, what we'll do is we will introduce the speaker. They will speak for 2 to 5 minutes. We'll hold our questions just because of the amount of people. So if you have any questions, go ahead and jot them down. Unfortunately, Suzanne is not here with us today. I am not 100% sure what's going on. I really hope she's okay. But we're going to have a great time anyway. A bunch of intelligent people here, incredible group. So again, I'm going to start this off a little bit differently. Now, anybody in here, would you consider yourself an entrepreneur, solopreneur, or business owner right now? So about pretty much the whole entire group. Okay, awesome. So this is going to be relevant. So basically what we'll do, and Suzanne just texted me, she actually did have a family emergency, so she will not be joining us today. So we're just going to open this up. I'd love to hear experiences, thoughts, questions, comments, concerns. But before we really dive into that, just to set the tone for entrepreneurialism, I think it's really important to kind of make a distinction. When we look at the Industrial Revolution, this was really built on the premise of working hard, a very systematized industry. So either you or your parents were probably affected by this industry. Once we got to 1985 to 1995, we saw a shift in the economy. We saw it transform into more of an internet era. And with that, there's this newer ideology of work hard or work smarter, not harder. And sometimes we've all experienced that the work ethic goes down with that. However, we went off the gold standard in 1997 in the US and we backed it by the service industry. Right now, during COVID, there's been no better time for a business owner to get up and off the ground running because of all of the available resources. Everybody in this room right now is probably in a different location, and we have the ability to talk easily, which is an incredible opportunity. So guys, I would love to hear your thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, experiences in entrepreneurialism. If you have a story, if you have a question for another business owner in here, would love to hear from you. So right off the bat, does anybody have anything that they want to ask or share?
I certainly can. I'd love to ask the room, for all of you who raised your hands, answering Keegan's question of who's an entrepreneur in the room. I raised my hand, but I was hesitant to, only because I'm so new to this world. It's very fresh for me in the last year. I come from corporate America, if you will. I was working with the NFL and ticket sales, and of course COVID stopped that. So I actually co-founded a business in the fintech space. So just recently I learned that I can do more than one thing at a time. And I guess that's what started to define me as an entrepreneur. And I recognized that it was more about how many different places can I add value, rather than putting all my eggs in one basket and trying to be what I need to be in one lane. How many different places can I spread out my knowledge and my, expertise and my effort, and add value, whether it's directly or indirectly. So I'm still very new to this, but I know there's a lot of great people in this group, a couple familiar faces and those who I've yet to meet. So I'm really here to learn and listen. I have been on quite the journey myself, starting this business over the last year, but I'd love to learn from everybody as to how their experience have been as an entrepreneur, if they've had to pivot in the pandemic, if so, why, and how did it work out? So those are the kind of things I'd love to hear while we're here today.
Patty, absolutely love to hear from you.
So I would speak a little bit to what Dylan said as far as, serving in a lot of different areas. My first career was in banking. I was a bank manager, stayed home to raise my children. And when I came out, I kind of went in the entrepreneurial way. So we're talking about 20 years ago. When I look back, my father always had his own businesses. So it's interesting. I'm just, didn't fall far from that tree. But along that career, I ended up opening a holistic wellness center. And I had a lot of different tools in my toolbox. But what I found is I was spreading myself too thin. So it was like, this part was really good. This part was okay. This part was pretty good. But 3 years ago, we moved to the beach. I pivoted again. And now my full focus is in just one area. And I just think that sometimes it's really hard. Now, if you have things that are complementary, but mine were, you know what I mean? Like everything that I did in my center were complementary, but I just found that I couldn't focus on one thing because I was trying to do too many. Just my opinion.
I'm certainly feeling that, Patty.
Yeah. So a marketing person once said to me, Patty, you're good at everything you do, but what are you great at? And focus on that.
Mm-hmm. It's great advice. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, two things I would like to share with you. And one of the things I know that some of the people on this group have already heard, but number one is, Dylan, you said something really important. When you lead with value and impact over everything, the results always come back to you. I know Matt is absolutely incredible. Actually, everybody on this call is really incredible at this, but one of the first things that I remember of speaking with Matt Harms was that he really wanted to help people. It wasn't about the end result. It wasn't about the income. It wasn't about numbers. It was genuinely about helping people. And when we lead with value and impact and helping other people first, the money always comes, but you can't lead with the money because you turn everybody off. It has nothing to do with the money. It's how can I use my skills, experiences, knowledge to change your life, to help your life. And when you genuinely lead with that, that's where you get the results. That's where you manifest everything to come back to you. So I wanted to share that on Dylan's point. Another thing, Patty, and I really love what you said there. Again, I know a couple people have heard of this, but in one of our groups, we talk through what's called the Queen Bee resource. So you don't have to be a beekeeper to understand this, right? The Queen Bee resource is quite simple. If you were to look at a beehive, the queen bee really operates everything. They have multiple jobs in the hive. They've got to collect pollen. They've got to build the hive. They've got to protect the queen. They've got to do all these various things. But what you'll find is that the number one resource is to protect that queen. If the queen dies, the hive dies. So to Patty's point, to Dylan's point, you've got all these other things going on as a business owner. Absolutely. But you can't negate from your number one resource. And what I've found to be an appropriate split there is about 60 to 75% on that primary resource. And then you split the additional time to break down those other subcategories to help move your business forward. So anyway, would love to hear from other people. Bill, Matt, Ben.
I actually a little tag on that, just speaking of the time management and trying to, grow my business to the next level. I'm probably, some point spring, summer of this next year is going to be time to hire some people. So anybody that's gone through that process, I've got a ton of questions for anybody that's done it. I have one admin right now that does very, very little. I'm going to pick up a sales guy here in a little while. And then I need to have, call it an office manager. It's all going to be virtual, just stuff like this. But that's going to be one of the next big tasks that I have, trying to, I guess, be the queen bee, so to speak, and then have my worker bees as well.
Yeah, it sounds like Keegan is describing the Borg with the queen, but I would tell him to behave. So But yeah, I mean, I believe in that, philosophy as well, is that, you're only as good as your leader. And if there's no leader, then, the workers can't follow. Being an entrepreneur for a number of years, I realized I got to be both queen and, the worker at the same time. So it's definitely a delicate balance in in those aspects.
I would also jump in and say, from a balance standpoint, you can definitely focus on multiple things, but whatever your main thing is, as Patty said, what you're great at, get that up and running fully by itself first, right? If you look at like Elon Musk and Mark Cuban, they own hundreds of companies, but they're not running each one on a daily basis. Once something is up and running and generating and supporting itself, it's easier to focus on some of the other shiny things.
I have a question on that. Because as you guys are, talking about focusing what you're great on, I'm thinking about, I'm internalizing that and trying to think what I'm great at. And I think my answer is I'm actually great at something that's happening in the background. It's not one of the businesses specifically. What I mean is I think networking is my what I'm great at, right? Connecting the dots, putting the pieces of the puzzle together, being the connector. That's what I'm great at. And so that happens with my full-time job as a VP of sales, as well as, trying to do business development and sales and marketing for my startup. So my networking is kind of happening in the background. I think that's what I'm great at. So I guess I have a tough time saying no. I spread myself too thin, like Patty said, because I want to take any opportunity I can. So I guess my question to the room is, I think my greatness kind of lies in the background. So I have a tough time focusing on, all the different projects, if that makes any sense.
Well, I mean, let me throw this out there to you. In life, you have to prioritize. So the question is, what is important to you, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and even financially? So everything has a pecking order. And so what is going to make you the happiest and also allow you to make a living is what's important. Also, depending on the severity of the work, that will make a difference. For example, today, I have somebody who's down because their windows crashed like Bill Gates in his marriage. So I got to sit there and, get him up again. And I have to do 1.5 years worth of work probably within a week. So he's the prior right now, where other people have other updates. Those are not the big things. So it's whatever is critical to you and to somebody else that makes that the priority. Why do you think there's VIP access to the club? Because people that don't make it don't get into the club. So it's the same thing. Everything in life has a hierarchy. Look, when you travel, there's pre-TSA check. So for people that are spend the money and do more, you get in first. So again, everything in life has a priority. The question is, how do you deal with your own pie? And you are your own pie, whether it's chicken or pizza or apple or peach or even cherry. So which pie is more important to you? And then how do you delegate your time for that certain, a professional pie?
Thank you.
So I'd like to interject one thing, Dylan. I think that number one, it's absolutely critical to have your plan. If you don't have a 15, a 5, a 1 year plan, you don't know where your business is navigating. Once you have that plan and that destination, then I would impress upon you the concept of eat the frog. Is everybody here familiar with this? Okay, so basically Mark Twain coined this term, and eat the frog essentially is, if you start your day and you have 1,000 tasks that you have to complete, what you need to do is you need to break it down to the top most important tasks. What tasks will move your business forward and your personal life forward? And then you want to get about 2 frogs, and you want to eat the ugliest frog of the 2. So the point is, when you do the harder tasks at the beginning of the day, it sets the tone for the rest of the day. It makes the rest of the day easier from then on. You're going down the hill. Nobody wants to wake up and eat a frog. Can you guys imagine like eating a slimy frog right now to start your day? So again, the point is that visual kind of sticks with us. And to recap that, it would be, again, have that forward vision, that plan, know where your business or your personal life is going. And then every day you just say what task is the most important to contribute to that end goal. And you just start your day with that. And as you said, Dylan, networking is really a part of that byproduct, right? You're making the relationships, you're connecting people, you're expanding your network and your reach. Those are parts of the business, but is that the queen bee resource? Is that your number one resource that's actually going to bring in the dollars or the reach or the frequency or whatever that end goal is? So I would challenge you a little bit here and make you narrow this down to 3 tasks for the month. If you have 3 major projects for each month, 1 being the most important, 2 being the second, 3rd being the 3rd most important, I would be interested to learn more, but I think the networking might fall as your 3rd to support and serve those first 2 tasks.
That makes sense. I like it. Let's connect more on that. And I want to show you some stuff we got going with Peakbot and how we're kind of organizing our time. I think you'd find it interesting because we needed to find a way to motivate ourselves. We started with the sweat equity plan. That was great until you're in a startup and your timelines and your priorities shift a million times a week. So a sweat equity plan with hard dates on it and points to be earned doesn't keep because you have to change it so much it becomes null and void. So we figured out a new system. I'd like to talk with you more about it. I don't want to be taking up all our time here today, though.
Of course, Dylan. So, Joe, Ben, I would love to hear from you guys. You guys have a wealth of knowledge. I know that you've ventured down the entrepreneurial or business owner route. I would love to hear a story, an experience, a question, a concern, a trend in the market that you guys are seeing right now.
Sure. I have to say, breaking my ankle put things in perspective about priorities. You definitely figure out what is important in life, and things become a lot more simpler. And after that, the only way is up. So things are going great, if you ask me. No matter how they have been going after you break your ankle, things are always going up. But as far as entrepreneurship, it's really just hard work. There's no. Sometimes you get lucky, right? People do, but generally speaking, it's just a lot of hard work. But priorities from what has been said already, without repeating people too much, prioritizing. I think it's important, and I would say just become an expert at that one thing. And lead with that thing until you exhaust that and you can have it automated, whatever your goals are, right? Whatever your goals. But I want to be an expert in fewer things and work with other people who are expert at other things. But I don't want to be the master. Someone, I can't remember where I read this or seen this, but it's a myth. Like we can multitask, field, and it seems like when you niche and you only focusing on one, you're going to miss out on opportunities. But it's the opposite. You become an expert, people start looking up to you, and things usually work out that way from what I've seen. And I always try to remind myself is just do stuff, instead of perfecting the plan, instead of making all kinds of preparations, just go forward. It's more important to get something done than sit on something and always be preparing and launching and masterminding it. Just do it and learn from it, and then do it again, and then do it better. And those are the 2 things that I can share from my experience that have worked for me.
Yeah,
I'll
go ahead, Ben.
I was just going to say, I'll just add on to what Joe was saying. And what I can say is entrepreneurship is hard. I came from the corporate world originally with Otis Elevator. That was a subsidiary of United Technologies. And then I moved to a different country, Seoul, South Korea, and helped build an English language academy over there for 10 years. And now I'm in a startup here in the US. And I think just allowing yourself sometimes, or blocking out some of your time just for yourself to just do nothing, gives you that extra perspective or time. For me, it's just walking to the bathroom and just pee. And then I'm like, oh yeah, okay, this is what I could be doing. But I think that time that you give yourself to allow yourself to just take a break and take a breath, I think really does help, because there's so much that's happening. And sometimes you feel overwhelmed and overstressed. And I think that actually hurts us as we're trying to develop our businesses. So that's number one. And then most of my experience really has been on the sales side. And so somebody just introduced a really good book to me. It's called Sell More Faster. I don't know if you guys heard of that, but it's called Sell More Faster. It's by Techstars. You can get it on Amazon. But they really focus on, basically other people have done a lot of what we're trying to do, and you just learn from them. That's how I like to learn. And he talks about the who, what, and why. Like, you gotta really try to define who your customers are. What about your services or product they would really find valuable? And then why would they pay you money to buy that product? And it takes time, and it takes some testing to see exactly who your real ideal customers are. And then once you do, then it's much easier, if you're hiring a sales staff and stuff like that, to point them in the right direction, give them better leads, set them up for success. Because I have a philosophy that most people want to do a good job. You have to be shown how to do a good job, and then praised, and then held accountable because you have clear expectations. So I'll stop there. Again, that's Sell More Faster by Techstars. And then just allow yourself just to take a little break and just take a breath.
That was great, Ben. Thank you. Actually, Matt helped write that book. Matt Harms did. So, but no, a couple really important notes right there is perfection is the enemy of profit and progress. So basically what that means is sometimes people get so caught up in the planning phase that they forget to commit to the execution phase. You know, I think about this story about decision making, and I've got a friend in the military, and the story goes like this. There is this guy who's tasked with coming up with two options for their platoon. Now they've got an option A and an option B, and this guy spends 56 hours in 2 weeks preparing information, organizing, getting everything ready for this meeting. And they finally go into the meeting, and the meeting only lasts for about 35 minutes. And the general immediately stands up and says, we're going with option B. Pour all your energy, effort, and resources into this option. We're moving forward. So the private comes to the general later on and he says, do I have permission to speak freely? And he says, granted. So the individual, he voices his concerns. He says, I've put 56 hours into coming up with all this information to make this decision. How could you make a decision so quickly without all the information? And the general said, we will never have all of the information. It is more important to act and find the information along the way. If we put everything into this one decision and we're wrong, we just go to the next decision. We pivot and we put all our resources there. But if we're right, we're already way ahead of the game. So I think that that's something really important, a distinction that based on what Joe said, is that sometimes we fight so much for perfection because of the fear of criticism or, you know, what the world will think or other people will think or my family will think. But reality is you just need to get started, right? The other thing is that I think it's really interesting when we look at the United States was built on this premise of making other people work really hard. You saw this in different generations. You saw this in different cultures and different communities and people that came overseas, and they really worked people hard. How is that relevant to entrepreneurialism? Well, it's completely relevant, because if we want to build a business and an organization and establish something that's larger than ourselves, we can't do all the work ourselves. You know, Bill talked about this, Joe talked about this, Dylan talked about this. We need to delegate our time and tasks. people that are wealthy, they spend money to get more time back. I'm going to say that again. People that are wealthy, they spend their money to get their time back. I worked with people that were close to death, and I always asked really deep, profound questions, not to build rapport and get a sale. I was genuinely interested. And one of the common themes that I found was that most people in their older years told me that their most fondest and favorite memories were those that were shared with loved ones. They were memories. They weren't material things that they bought. They weren't accomplishments in their business. They were memories with people they loved. So if you can hire people and delegate so that you are spending your time, energy, and resources on those queen bee resources, on that primary profit driver, then you get more of that time back to spend with the ones you love. And of course, hard work is absolutely relevant. So those were some things on Joe's points. And Ben, I really loved what you said. I think that everything that you said is right on point. You know, you've got to be able to build and replicate a model that other people can replicate, right? It can't be so robust and audacious that it's hard to grasp and understand. You have something that's very simple, a clear format. You present that to people. This is how we do things. Just like Ben mentioned, you give them that praise. If you can do that in public, that's even better because that helps boost people's love languages. You know, so these are just a couple of things. But anyway, I'm talking too much. I'd love to hear other people's thoughts and perspectives on that information.
You know, our group, our team is reading The Success Principles by Jack Canfield right now. That is an incredible book. The chapters are all kind of short chapters, but there's, you know, on delegation and on speaking from your heart and on your language and what, you know, truth matters and all these. It's a great, great book to kind of put all these different things in perspective. So I just thought I would share that because even our language is just like last night's chapter was on, you know, be impeccable with your words because your words are either going to build people up or take people down. And are your words actually playing into your vision and your mission? So it's just an awesome book. It might be something to consider.
Can you put that in the chat, Patty?
Sure can.
Thank you. I was going to ask a question. If there was anybody else in the room from an entrepreneurial sense on the sales side over the last year, well, however long this pandemic's been going, I've found myself stumbling into a lot of referral agreements, joint sales contracts, you know, finder's fee, whatever you'd call it. And I love those. And, you know, I think I'm in a fortunate position where my full-time job, my agency where I'm selling doesn't give me slack for entering into these agreements as well. And so, you know, I wanted to know if anybody else is trying to monetize their network and their connections through different businesses, because I'm finding success in that. And I just wanted to know if this is something that can be scalable and if anybody has experience with that. And I'd be happy to share my experiences with it as well if nobody else has.
Actually, Dylan, I wouldn't mind hearing a little bit more about, you know, the kind of procedures you have set up, you know, in order to get that done.
Yeah.
My world, I'm a little bit different. I mean, there's a very fine line because I handle corporate insurance stuff, but there's a certain point where I cannot share money because it's illegal. It's called rebating. I could lose my license because of it. So I have to tread very, very lightly. I mean, that's why I'd like to learn more about what exactly you're doing.
Yeah, it's really interesting you mentioned that. And I guess I would assume that if you were far enough away from what you're doing, maybe it wouldn't be an issue to enter into a contract. So like, for example, I guess my story, and I'll try to make this brief. You know, I was working in the NFL and then there were no tickets to sell, right? And so I had this experience where overnight with nothing to sell, I was of immediate value to everybody I spoke to because I had nothing to sell them. And they just wanted to utilize me for my network. And after a 30-minute phone call, I can make 3 or 4 introductions to them without holding back, knowing that these would be good people to connect with. And I'm not asking for anything in return. And so I immediately had this light bulb moment where it was, okay, let's see how we can monetize this. Because without even asking, I had businesses saying to me, one example would be in the cannabis space, a software management system for cultivators, right? Anybody who's growing or cultivating cannabis across the country, across the globe, needs to track all their data points in one way or another. Now, I knew nothing about this until I did, after talking to somebody just that I stumbled upon in a networking group. And immediately after talking to this person 4 or 5 times and really asking a million questions, equipping myself with enough knowledge of this business to now be dangerous, to where if I'm on a networking call or doing anything else, anytime that cannabis comes up, I'm like, oh, you got to talk to my guy, Brett. And so now I've made introductions to him, put business on his plate without him even asking. And now he goes, hey, Dylan, would you be interested in having an external sales contract with us? Having a, agreement, let's call it 5% of anything you bring me, I'll pay you. And we can do this as a residual because they have a subscription business. And so I said, yes. And, I started making connections for them. And once you have one and you see these sales go through, you can immediately almost say, all right, I can replicate this. Let's go find more people to do business. And I actually didn't continue to go in the same industry. Like I could have ran rampant through cannabis, which I have made more connections there, but I went and spread myself out. Credit card audit, importing technology, raising capital for a restaurant, whatever it is. I have all these people that know me and want to do favors for me and want to help me because I'm helping them. And it's silly not to utilize that for all these different businesses and myself. So I have a stack of referral agreements that, I'm not making deals happen every day. I'll be in a contract for a year and I won't have anything go through, but I'm in touch, I'm learning, and I eventually will, bring something through. And it's not life-changing money, but these are checks I'm going to get every month, and that's nice. That's nice to have. So that's my experience. I can certainly share more, but I don't want to hog time.
I recently joined a new networking group, and it is a paid group, but they have a platform that's set up for referral fees, not just if you bring them into the group, but if you do business, like if I send somebody to Keegan and he did a $3,000 program with them, he would set up whether it would be a 10% or a 5% or whatever. But when you're in that type of situation, you are more apt to refer somebody in your group because the referral is there. And, it's not that you want to put the money first, but obviously if you're in a group with them, you're going to learn to really know what they're like, whether you trust them or not, and you're going to find key people that you want to refer to. But, I belong to another paid group and I have easily sent him $15,000 worth of participants, but there's no referral fee. So why wouldn't I work with this other group that is going to be more than just, hey, thanks. So it's I don't know, it's kind of a great process.
Yeah, I'd be interested to learn more about that. Is that like a BNI or something similar?
Well, it's similar. Actually, for anybody that's free at 2:00, we have a meeting that you could jump on. I could send the link. Oh God, I love that. The Big Bang. That's like my favorite. But anyway, sure. And if anybody, wants the link, I can ship that over to you.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've got a couple things because I think these are really, really critical points. So one of the things that Patty said was the impeccable word. And I always forget his last name, but Miguel wrote this in the 4 agreements, and it's really crucial. So I've done a lot of research and study on language and our word. I think this is absolutely fascinating. So some of you guys might already know this. Yeah, there it is. Some of you might already know this, but when we look at the words that we use it absolutely impacts our decisions, which absolutely impact our results. If we look at the English language, it has over 750,000 words. The next closest is German, which is 300,000 words. And when we start to break down some of these little minute details, it becomes a part of the bigger picture. For instance, majority of the English language are comprised of verbs. Of those verbs, 2/3 of them are negative. So it's really important to focus on the words that you're using in your day-to-day with yourself and with others. If we take this a little bit deeper, we find that Mandarin Chinese actually is the slowest spoken language in the world, but they are also mostly comprised of nouns, which are long-term versus the verb, which is a short-term action word. So I think it's really important to focus on that. It's a slower speech and it's something that's more long-term. And then we look at Japan, who's obviously a neighbor of China, and Japan is the fastest spoken language in the entire world. Second would be Spanish. So when we focus on these words and we look at how we speak to ourselves and to others, it is a direct reflection of who we are and the conversations that we have internally. So it's so important to do that. And actually, Matt brought this to my attention a couple of weeks ago, but he said, wow, when I go back and I look at the recordings of these mastermind groups, it's so enlightening to see the words that I use repeatedly or the statements. And that's really important, right? How often do you actually study your speech? How often do you play back sales calls and look at things you did really well and look at the areas that you can improve? I mean, everybody should be doing those things. So I wanted to share that on Patty's point. Number two, based on what Dylan was saying, it is so critical, and also with Patty and Bill, but it is so critical to have that referral fee. Now, again, of course, with Bill being in the insurance world, you cannot do what's called rebating. Yes, that is illegal. However, could you give a gas card or a gift card or some sort of incentive that's not related to the insurance part? Yes, maybe, no, maybe. But we got to think about this from a neurological standpoint. And when we break this down, is everybody here familiar with WIFM? So WIFM is what's in it for me. And when we look at the neurology of our brain, there's this part that, and I'm just, making this easy, right? But there's part that's called the reptilian brain. So in the reptilian brain, it controls four things: fight, flight, food, and reproduction. So when we are based on that, what's in it for me, we are using our reptilian part of our brain. So if you lead by serving others, it always comes back. So again, based on one of the things that Ben had shared earlier, knowing your avatar, knowing your market, if we look at brand story, for example, and we break it down into four elements, there's a character that we serve, there's a problem that they have, we have a solution for them, and then we want to give them tools so that they can use this moving forward. So I think that, summarizing all of these things are really important. What are the words as a business owner? What are the words that you use with yourself? Are you telling yourself that it's possible? Are you holding higher expectations and standards for yourself and your business? Based on the other point with the referral fees, I think it's so critical if you are in a position to provide referral fees, by all means, give them. Because like Patty shared, she's in two groups and she's got resources to serve both groups. But the group that's going to provide her a kickback fee, it's not about greed. It's not about, oh my gosh, I want money. It's about, look, I'm bringing you value and impact. And I think this is a funny example, but we think back to Batman Begins, and the Joker said this, but he said, if you're good at something, you never do it for free, right? And it's not a stance of greed. It's a stance of, look, I'm bringing you value. There's an exchange here. So that's really important to identify. And then again, that third point is really the brand story, knowing who you serve, knowing what their problems or their pain points are, knowing how you have the solution, and then providing them tools moving forward. So I would love to hear, other perspectives and thoughts. Dylan. Yeah.
Yeah, just really quick. You talk about if you're in a position to give the referral fees, give them. I think you're totally right. And it just made me think back a little bit, right? I was just saying, I have all these referral agreements. As I'm thinking through this, those that I didn't have to ask for, those that were presented to me are the ones that I do the most business with, and it's not even close. Now, because if it took you so long to not offer me my piece of business and I had to ask you for it, now, even if you said yes, if you said no, I'll never talk to you again. But if you said yes, you know, that's great. We have an account, but I had to ask for it. So if it had to come to crunch time and my calendar's full and I got to do one or the other, it's going to the person who brought it to me, even if it's for less. Really, that's just how I work. So I wanted to just put that out there because Keegan, you made a great point.
But Dylan, I think this is a new concept too. And I think that maybe people just aren't thinking, well, gee, it would be nice to give them a little thank you fee. You know, I mean, I've been networking for quite a while too, and it never really had occurred to me until I was continually bringing this other man all of this business. And then all of a sudden this other group popped up and was like, oh yeah, a thank you check. How nice is that? It never occurred to me. But then again, I'm not in big business, you know, so maybe it is more commonplace, but I had never really experienced that.
Right. Well, I mean, I always sit there and thank everybody for referring me. And so one of the things I've always told my customers is that if you refer me out to somebody and of course it's a new person, it's not every time, as long as they do work 2 more hours for me, you get an hour on free. So it's basically like a finder's, you know, fee. So basically, if you're putting money in my pocket, you're giving me business, I want to sit there and pay it forward. So I'm very humble. I'm very appreciative and grateful of when people do kind, you know, and nice things for me. And nobody owes you a goddamn thing in this world. You're not entitled or privileged to get anything from anybody. So if anybody's kind or nice to you, don't take it for granted. Don't think it's coming to you, and try to show that person that you appreciate them, not just by verbally, but also financially as well.
I agree with giving credit where credit is due. And so the way I handle things, because I do have that, you know, that restriction that a lot of businesses, other types of businesses don't. I don't accept money from other people. I'll say, you know, keep the fee. That's not what I'm at. That's not what I'm here to do. If you have a piece of business you can refer to me, that's potentially everlasting. So I'll sacrifice whatever that fee is and say, because I can't give it back to you. So hold on to your money. I appreciate it. Just, you know, refer me some business. Let's be partner, you know, form a partnership, you know, and, you know, in lieu of taking money out of their pocket. And it's worked for me. I mean, it's a completely different approach, but it has worked out.
Yeah, Bill, I wanted to comment on that, and also a point Patty was making. You know, I'm new, right? I'm new at all this. I wasn't even a networker 2 years ago, but I honestly consider myself a really powerful connector, only because I've just kind of spread myself out. And Bill, you talk about like not wanting to take money out of their pocket. You put money in their pocket before anything happened. You know, if you're taking anything out of their pocket, it's not, you put it in there, you know? To Patty's point, you know, you say, you didn't recognize that this was happening. I guess I kind of came in and it was just thrown at me. So it was different. And also, I want to say this, the Band-Aid has been ripped off of corporate America, big business. Great example. There's a business I work with that is not, they're auditing credit card processors. So they're not a processor, they audit the processor. And what, hold on, let me gather my thoughts here. It's interesting because with them, somebody like myself who understands it and has a lot of business owners who are running credit cards every month, they're happy to give me a piece of the pie because it's an easier sell for me. I'm not walking around with the polo with the business name on me saying, hey, I audit your processor, because that's a turnoff to, and nobody wants to talk to that person. It's not sexy. But when Dylan comes in from the back door and says, hey, business owner, I'm not asking you. I'm telling you because you're my friend and you trust me. Do this. It becomes that much easier. That business owner was never going to do it if a person came in with the name of the business on their chest, because it was a sell. I didn't sell to the guy. I said, dude, I'm telling you because I'm your buddy, do this. And that business happens. So I'll do more sales than somebody who works for the company trying to sell it themselves, because again, I'm not selling it. People are buying it from me. whereas the employee might be trying to sell. So the Band-Aid's been ripped off. Big business is happy to bring Joe Schmo or Dylan Del Rosso into the cut if it means the business is going to get done. People can't wait around and jump through hoops anymore. So, like the logistics supply chain industry right now, anybody who's offering a helping hand is getting paid lavishly because it just needs to be done. So I'm finding myself over there. But again, don't want to overshare.
Well, I think these are interesting points, because when we started this off, there was a lot of concentration on value and impact. It's all relevant. Whether you're a business owner, entrepreneur, solopreneur, again, if you're leading with that value and the impact, not the money, then it comes back. And that's 100% relevant when we're talking about referral fees. It's, hey, look, if you send business my way, I'm more than happy to give you a discount or give you a kickback or send you a gift card or a thank you card or whatever's good. But you've got to display your character there. So I think that this is an underlying theme that we haven't really talked about that's relevant for every topic today, is our character. If we're the leader, if we're leading from the front, we have to have an appropriate character that's conducive in a work environment, for referrals, for our brand story, for all of these things to flow properly. So I think it's really important. And Ben said something on this earlier, is that you've got to take that self-time. You've got to take a moment, step back, clear your head. And, I'm a huge believer in planning. So if you have your day mapped out, I actually have to go in and put 15-minute breather appointments for myself just so I can clear my head. If I do 15, 30-minute appointments in one day, that's pretty exhausting to be on 15 Zoom calls in a day. It tears you up. So you've got to take those breaks. You've got to clear your head. You've got to be prepared. And that comes back to your character. It comes back to your self-awareness. But these are absolutely critical points when you're the leader, when you're the face of the business. You've got to lead people. You don't want to be a boss and make demands and hold these expectations. It is, here's the standard, and this is how I operate, and this is how I want the business to operate. If you're on board with that, let's do it. But we got to lead with that value and that impact. And when we genuinely focus on changing the lives of other people, that's when it magnetizes back towards us. That's when we get those good connections. That's when we make those referrals. That's when people are, hey, man, I know you have a great network. Let me throw some money your way to help send business our way. It's all about the value and impact. So we're about to wrap up. We only have a couple minutes left. I'd love to hear from anybody else. Ashley, Marlene, if you guys have any questions, Luke, Ben, Joe, Matt, if you guys have any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, Patty, Dylan, Bill, I would love to hear from you guys just as we start to wrap up.
I'll jump in again. So one thing I really appreciate this group, because I think I get such diverse feedback. It's interesting. I don't know. I feel like I've learned a lot here in just the last 50 minutes, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. I wanted to also just mention one thing. As I'm thinking about the things I've mentioned on this call, I'm sounding a little greedy, and I hate that, because it sounded like I'm chasing the money, when I want to make something very apparent, where the only thing I base everything on is this give first mentality. You don't find yourself in all these opportunities to make money without filling up the favor bank first. You got to truly give and care. And that's when that door finally opens to where, hey, let's do business, because I see you'd be here if you weren't paying me. You'd still be here helping me. That's when business really gets done. And I just wanted to share that. And because, the whole call is about entrepreneurialism, my introduction to entrepreneurialism was not being the guy who executed. I was said, typical Dylan, thinking, what's the quickest way and the most efficient way to do business here? How can Dylan add value? I can introduce them to somebody who has who really is doing all the work. Dylan can't execute. Dylan can't write a press release. Dylan can't code anything. Dylan can't do anything other than talk to strangers. So let's just do that and give them to the right person at the right time. So it's all about give first, and don't be shy to take advantage of opportunities, because businesses are ready to add to their army right now, however they can. So that's just last point.
No, I love that. And just to reflect on that really quickly, guys, if you are working, you need to have a plan. It doesn't matter if you're a business owner, if you're a 1099 or a W-2 employee, if you're an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter. You must have a plan. This is such a relevant part because look, if you don't know where the direction of your business is going, you cannot allocate your time to increase that value and impact that Dylan was just talking about. It is, look, I need to know where my business is going and what those goals are for me. And I will achieve that by impacting the lives of other people. I think Zig Ziglar said this, but the more people that you help achieve their goals, the closer you get to achieving your own goals. And that's such a relevant point. It's look, if I can put my neck out there and send some people your way, I just know it's going to come back. And knowing that at the bottom of your heart, and I guarantee you it will come back. It might not be the next day or the next month or maybe even a year down the road. But by bringing that value, that person's going to remember you and say, oh, wow, I remember that time that so-and-so introduced me to this other business owner and we built a relationship and now we've been friends for a year and I really have to pay that forward. So I love that. And again, having that plan is absolutely critical. I think that somebody had mentioned this to me. I think it was Dan Horwich, but he breaks networking into 4 buckets. So the first bucket is the narcissistic bucket. And this is the bucket where they'll take referrals all day long, but they'll never send one back to you. That's that narcissistic approach. The second bucket is these are the people that they'll take the referrals and they want to give them back. They just don't know how to. And one solution I would have for that, if you're a business owner, is it's very important to create a 1-pager or a small paragraph that you can send to people after networking. It's really powerful. Number 3 is there are people that they're going to send you a referral here or there, but they might not be all in. It just comes sporadically. And then the 4th bucket, which is crazy, but he broke this down. And again, of course, these are just opinions, but he thought that this was only about 3% of people that we network with are going to be those ones that as soon as you get off the call, hey, let me send this person. Hey, let me send that person. So when you realize that and you recognize that it's, hey, look, if I'm networking, there are probably 4 buckets. The reality is the fewest amount of people are going to be in that bottom bucket where they're just givers and they just give. So you got to realize that 97% of the people that you speak to out of 100 are going to be in those other 3 buckets. Now, it's our responsibility to create an easy transaction so that, hey, look, maybe that person's in the second bucket and they just don't know how to make the intro. Hey, no problem. Let me take that stress off of your shoulders. Here's a quick paragraph that you can send to somebody. Here's a quick 1-pager that you can shoot out to people. Well, now you take that 3% and you increase it, to 15%. Well, now you've got a higher close ratio on getting those referrals. So I thought that was important. Does anybody else have any last minute questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, opinions, snide remarks before we wrap up?
Well, I think that if we align ourselves with the right people, okay, then those that struggle, money is just another exchange of energy. If you struggle with receiving money, then you have limiting beliefs around that. But as long as you've aligned yourself with the correct people, we're here to make money. We're in business to make money. And I think that, you just kind of might want to look at that. But I will say to Keegan's, what he just said, I myself, I'm the type that when I get off a call, I do send out those referrals, but they don't usually come back. So I have made up my mind that I'm going to sit down this week and I'm going to make a list of the key 10 people that I feel my service aligns with, that, that they want to come from a place of service. And then those key people are the ones that I'm going to refer to on a consistent basis. So that was something I made up my mind I was going to do this week, is listen. And Keegan, you're on it. I connected with Keegan at a heart level for personal reasons, and I want to send this man business. I'm here for that reason. So make yourself a list of key people and refer to them, but make sure make sure you're in alignment with them.
Patty, we have to connect.
I love
Okay.
that.
I need to be on that list.
All righty.
The key people. I love
I got to
that.
run, guys.
I put my
want to connect
calendar
with
in there.
everybody here, though.
All
Have a
right.
good day.
Hey,
Bye.
Bill.
Awesome. Keegan, thanks so much for setting this up, man. This is always great. Patty, you're totally right. Build your inner circle, right? I look
Yes.
at it as like, if you have a target, like a shooting target with a bunch of rings on it, who's in the bullseye?
Right.
Take care of those people, drop everything for them. And there can be other layers of people who you can
Well,
fade
of
out to.
course. Of
But-
course. But I've met people. Matter of fact, Keegan, I just connected you with another young man, Brian. I know he's been sick, so he probably hasn't gotten to you. But when I spoke with him, you popped into my head. I sent an email a couple days ago, but I know he's been sick. But that's what I'm saying. All of a sudden, I thought I have to align myself with key people that I know come from a place of service. And that's what I'm going to do. And I think that will move our businesses forward
That's it.
too.
That's the
Yeah.
ticket. Well, look,
Yeah.
guys, incredible points. Thank you all so much for sharing. I love hearing from you. You guys have just the best energy. I mean, this is what a better way to start your day off. So I just want to thank you all so much for your time, so much for your participation. I'm grateful to have you guys in my circle and all the value you bring to everybody. If you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. This was a great conversation on entrepreneurialism. I'm really excited for our next talk on Tuesday. If you need anything, reach out and thank you for your time. So you guys are loved. Have an incredible Tuesday.
See you
Thanks,
all.
Keeg.
Bye-bye now.
everybody.
Thank you, Keegan.
Absolutely. Bye now.